A few comments. I'm going to try to respond as much as I can to everyone's comments because they're really, really good. There was a comment about, walking around your neighborhood and knocking on doors and seeing if they know DSA or what socialism is. And I think it's funny because we all know that they probably don't know what DSA is. But the reality is that nowadays most people do know about socialism. And actually, most people are in favor of it in some form or another. Now, obviously, that's a very vulgarized form. Like, we have to understand that. And even Lenin talks about this, that like when the economists and the legal Marxists were coming around and were in their heyday, like the 1880s and 1890s, like Marxism and socialism became much more in vogue, but in a vulgarized form. But he didn't denounce that. He said it was something to work on and to build on. And we have seen like that shift. If you look at poll numbers, the younger demographic greatly does view socialism in a different light, but overall it's changed. I forget the exact number. I think it's over 50%, maybe even near 60%. And for another example, look at the young demographic in the poll when it comes to a one-state solution on Palestine. I mean, we have now a majority of young people that think like the Israeli settler colonial state shouldn't exist at all. That is a radical shift in consciousness amongst people here. And I think we have to recognize that. Bernie and AOC and even the DSA like election strategy they had in the last decade, there was some point to it. There was some value to it. But it's probably run its course. And we need to find new strategy, new tactics, and sort of revitalize the movement because eventually those things only work to a certain point, and you have to go beyond that. Another comment about settler colonialism. I kind of want to put this even at my own party, how many of us are in contact, especially in terms of national organizations, because there's not really a reservation here in LA, but how many of our national orgs are working with Native nations? Or Native organizations. Lenin's big breakthrough in Marxism was that it wasn't, well, he had many breakthroughs, but one of them was that it wasn't just the dictatorship of the proletariat. That was the dictatorship of the proletariat and the peasantry. And if you even read more, he talks about oppressed nations, and if you are from an oppressor nation and you're not for the full self-determination, even including full separation of oppressed nations, then you're a chauvinist. And if you look at a historical perspective, our country was built on a reactionary basis as a reaction to Native resistance and African resistance. If you look at the scale of slave rebellions, if you look at the scale of Native resistance through the 17th and 18th centuries, that had a huge impact on the reactionary settler classes here, collaborating across national lines, across religious lines. Let's not forget that only a century earlier that the Protestants and Catholics fought for like 40 years and killed 100 million people in Europe because one of them was Protestant, one of them was Catholic. That evaporated here in the US. Why? Because there was this gigantic threat of Native and African resistance. And to ignore that, I think, would be a huge issue on our part as the left. Even from an historical perspective, even more closely to our era, right? Whether it's the Great Depression and the unemployed councils, which if you don't know what those are, I definitely recommend looking into what the unemployment councils were. It's the closest thing we had to a Soviet council here in the US, where communists went and basically fought fascists in the state to get people not evicted. And they organized other aspects. They're the ones that came up with unemployment insurance, was the unemployment councils. That we need to, again, look to our allies. A lot of us are maybe working class or petty bourgeois. We need to look at who we can get allies with in the class struggle. And to the comment of what do we do when we're in the state? Not to go back to Lenin, I apologize. But he talks about this, that we need to have a minimum and maximum goals. So if we do get in elected office, we try to enforce our minimum goals. Whether it's land reform, whether it's, housing bills, whatever it is, But the maximum goals are still there, being a socialist society. So I think having that and again, I know not a lot of leftists like this, but democratic centralism, real accountability within organizations, then that issue is really solved. If you are a member of an organization that practices democratic centralism and you have minimum and maximum programs, then when you get into office, you're trying to enforce your minimum programs. And if you go out of line, then again, discipline, or you're kicked out of the party or organization. And I feel like, again, the last 5 or plus years, that's been proven to be factual. And I've seen this a lot, and even Aaron, to a degree, I said this, that like we need to make sure that we show the state is illegitimate. And that is only half of the question, or half of the answer, I should say. It does nothing to produce nihilism, I think, in the working class. To say that it's all shit, that it's nothing works, that, you know, there's no point in it. Like, I think that naturally breeds like apolitical thinking and tendencies where you don't get active, because like, what's the point? And I think a huge part of us, because we are, again, that organized left, that organized socialist left, we have to present solutions, real material solutions. And then we have to actually win some, because that's how we gain legitimacy. That's how we show that we are for real, that we're not just talk. We're not on the sidewalk just preaching with newspapers, you know, that we're actually winning material gains for the working class. And sometimes, again, like the unemployment councils, that comes through insurrectionary measures. You know, the Communist Party, when they did that, that wasn't legal. When they went down in the South and organized all those labor unions, that wasn't legal at all. There was no National Labor Relations Board. So a large part of our work is probably going to be at some point clandestine. And some of that discussions probably aren't going to be on camera. But that's okay, you know. I don't think we're right there yet, but maybe we will be soon. Everything has to be on the board, every tool. It's just when the material conditions calls for it.
Amazing. I think that's actually a good stopping point. I'm so sorry if you had comments and you didn't get to speak them, but we do have 4 more weeks of this, so keep reading those articles and keep engaging with, you know, the material reality of Los Angeles. I wanted to thank the speakers so much. You guys did an incredible job. And yes, give them a round of applause. And a big push for us here is to make sure that anyone who's an individual and not in an organization, we're trying to get people to join organizations. We don't care if it's Food Not Bombs, like fold some burritos, or, you know, joining a communist party or joining any sort of party. We're just trying to get people to start engaging with your community and learn what it's like to be held accountable and organized in a democratic sense like that. So actually this Sunday, so tomorrow, we're going to be having an organization fair for a ton of different organizations and parties included. It's going to be out at Matalahia Books in El Monte. And I believe there will be coffee and snacks provided, so you guys should come out and shop around, see what kind of orgs there are available in Los Angeles. Also, right now at All Power Books at 6 p.m., we are having a Beauty in the Struggle art show, and a ton of really amazing propagandists of our time are presenting their work. There's going to be refreshments. I saw a keg, so get a little loose, and that's across the street. Please check that out after this if you guys have time. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for coming. Please come by next week and come to the art show after.